Hello and welcome to J Designs. So maybe you already own a Tacoma and you want to see what's going to fail on it when it gets to around 200,000 miles, or maybe you're going to buy a Tacoma. It's around the same mileage as this one, and you just want to know what's going to fail. That's what we're going to talk about today. I would show you how many miles are on my truck. It's about 200,000. I think it's like closer to 190, but close enough. I would show you the odometer on this truck, but this truck's been down for about 2 weeks. The battery's been disconnected. It's just been sitting, and that's because it has a major failure on it that I'm fixing here. But that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to talk about all of the things that have gone in my ownership. Let's get into it. So we're just going to go chronologically here. This is the back of the T-case. When I got the truck, it was weeping oil right here down the back of the transfer case. That was a really weird seal to find. It took me about like a week to hunt down the right seal for that. I don't think it's something that goes very common, but that was the very first thing that I had to fix. Pretty easy fix though. And while we're down here, you'll probably see all this stuff that pertains to that major failure. We'll get to that. So now that we got the wheel off, one of the other things that went on here was the lower ball joint. Not a huge deal. It's literally 2 bolts and then you press it out of another little piece on the bottom here. It's a relatively easy fix, but I think both ball joints were bad on this truck. Some of that is because I'm running, and hopefully you can see that, huge oversized tires, and I like to drive this thing like a bit of maniac. Those big tires put more leverage on those ball joints, and consequently the lower one was pretty hammered. The upper one was actually good, but as you can see, it's got this big long knuckle. You know, from the distance from the center here to that knuckle, it's a big long lever arm. So anyways, this one sees a lot less forces inside that ball joint because of this big lever arm here is essentially counteracting the leverage that the tire produces. But you can see the lower one has a very short distance from the center line to here. So it sees a lot more forces within that ball joint. Anyways, that one failed. And then when you go in and do your ball joint, it's always just a good time to do your tie rods and your upper ball joint. So all of those were replaced on this truck. It's something you can expect to do around 150,000 miles. Another thing that went on this truck was the wheel bearings. Again, some of that failure probably has to do with me running oversized tires and driving a little bit crazy. It just puts more load on those wheel bearings. But one side had a made in China wheel bearing and the other side had a made in Japan coil wheel bearing, which I can only assume the made in Japan one was an actual OEM bearing that went around the same time, about 150, 160,000 miles. And the reason why there was a Chinese one on this side, the Chinese one was actually fine, but I assume somebody had, at some point earlier than when I got the truck, somebody had replaced one of the wheel bearings. While I got you down here, I want to talk about this little nub of material here. It sticks off of what your lower ball joint would go through. Does anyone know what this actually does? It's actually pretty cool. I'm going to do a video on what this does in the future. So this piece indexes to this little nub on your control arm here. This stuff's pretty darn cool. Do you know what it does? So, and more recently on this truck, some of the things that have failed, the big one is the rear main seal went on this truck. Sad day. So the rear main seal is on the back of the motor. So in order to service that, you either got to pull the motor or you just got to drop the trans off of the back of the motor and leave the motor in the truck. That's probably what I'll do. It's not the end of the world for me. I've dropped a transmission before. I'll probably do the same for this one. But to be honest with you, I'll probably just leave that rear main seal. The leak is super slow right now. I've been watching the leak for a few months, ever since I noticed it. On top of the rear main seal going, I do have a friend, Julian. I don't know if you watch this, Julian, but I know him from social media and we go off-roading occasionally, and he's got a Tacoma, I think the same year as mine, and his front main seal went. So that's the seal on the front of the motor that keeps the oil in the motor. So you can expect one or both of those to go. My front main seal is fine for now, but the rear one, no good. So this actually did not fail on my truck, but I do want to mention this because it is a common problem with Toyota IFS. So this is a cam bolt that has to do with your alignment, so it adjusts your lower control arm. But the way these things are designed, it's, I don't know, not a bad design, but essentially you've got an outer bolt and then there's another bolt that would pass through that thing, and essentially corrosion will get inside of here. And insert dirty joke now. And when they're inside of there, corrosion get inside of those two and it will seize the inner bolt to that outer sleeve, and then you won't be able to adjust your alignment anymore. So it's an issue, but I don't live in a particularly corrosive environment, so mine has luckily been fine at almost 200,000 miles. So this one's not really a deal breaker, it just kind of sucks. I was hopping in the truck the other day, dropped my window shade, and holy old heck, we'll go with that. You see that friggin' huge crack? It's massive. So this one probably wasn't Toyota's fault. I don't know if you can see that little spider crack. That was there for probably 2.5 years, and then got in the truck one day and it's this huge, I don't know if it's showing up on camera. It's a huge U-shaped crack like that, and then it's kind of fingering down this way. I don't know, I've been driving it around for like 2 months like that and it's been fine, but it all started from this little crack 2 years ago. So I think what happened with the cracked window is that window is kind of like differentially heated. So the way that sun reflector points is this way, straight to the garage, and I really don't like the sun. It pretty much beams off of that freaking sun reflector and will light up the whole garage, and then you can't look this direction. It's like blinding. So what I did was I put a piece of cardboard on it, and I also had the sun deflector up, and I think it kind of like differentially heated the window, you know, like it got hot on the top where it wasn't covered by the cardboard, and then the cardboard insulated the bottom, so that was cool, and consequently big old crack through the windshield. It was sitting like that for about a week with the cardboard on it before I noticed that big U-shaped crack. This thing is not my daily. All right, so now let's talk about absolute, hands down, the biggest failure I have had on this truck. Up to this one, all of the failures that have happened, I'd say is pretty reasonable. Even that rear main seal, which is something that's kind of hard to replace, you figure that rear main seal went through thousands of heat cycles before it failed, and obviously almost 200,000 miles of driving. But this one, yeah, kind of makes you question Toyota's reliability. Let's go check it out. So we're right here again. You saw this earlier in the video. This is that rear main seal leak. Right behind this cross member, the cab mount will be right here if you want to locate this on your own truck. And the nuts part about this is I could not see this until it finally opened up. So this had a little piece of steel covering it here, and this whole thing looked about like that maybe, until it looked like that. So I did a bit of hard driving and then got up under the truck, and then I think that's when this opened up. And like, that's the crazy part I really want to stress is I couldn't see this prior to this happening, you know. But yeah, total, the rotted out section is like this big, by the way. And you can see the frame rails two sections, and there's a second layer that's probably like a 1/2 inch off of where it should be, which is connected to this one. Pretty nuts. I have a whole separate video on the channel talking about this, talking about the problem, and then I have another video of how to look on your own truck and see if there's a issue with your frame. So there is a recall out for the frames on these trucks. It extends from 2005 all the way to 2011. So you can run the VIN of your truck or the truck you're gonna buy, and you can check to see if you're eligible for a frame replacement. That would be awesome. There's also a limited service campaign. It's a KOD is the name of the limited service campaign, and that extends the frame replacements to 2012 to 2017 trucks. My truck, unfortunately, being a 2012, was not actually eligible for that limited service campaign. Apparently there's a deadline for that limited service campaign, and also if you read that, it says it's for cold weather. I am not in a cold weather climate, but it said my truck was eligible for it, but it missed it by a couple of months. I was like, for that deadline, which really sucks, but we'll still get this thing back on the road. It's okay. So there you go. That's pretty much everything that has failed on my truck in approximately 200,000 miles of driving. I really hope this video helps somebody out there. As soon as I'm done fixing the frame, we'll get back to doing mods and builds on this truck. I've got a camper coming for it. That's the whole reason this thing has a flatbed on it. And we'll get back to abusing this thing. Can't wait for that, man. It's been 2 weeks since I've driven it. I'm really missing this thing. Get it back on the road. That frame fix will be on this channel. Thank you to almost 600 subscribers. I'm super surprised that people like the nerdy stuff I make. And thank you for watching.